Hello, it is 3 p.m. Wednesday here in Seoul. I am Noaram. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News this afternoon. We start with the novel coronavirus situation in Korea, and it continues to spread. More than 500 new cases have been confirmed since Tuesday. This brings the total number of confirmed patients in the country to over 5,300, and with 4 more deaths reported overnight, the death toll now stands at least 33. Nearly 90% of the cases are concentrated in the southeastern city of Daegu, and more than 60% of the total cases are linked to community-based transmission. Daegu alone has more than 4,000 cases, and the surrounding Gyeongsangbuk-do province has so far confirmed more than 770. Seoul, meanwhile, has confirmed 1 more case, bringing the capital's total to at least 99. The ruling party, the government and the top office have been locked in talks on ways to tackle the outbreak and related issues. The government has also proposed an extra budget of almost $10 billion to help minimize the economic fallout caused by the outbreak. Our Kim Mo-kyun has more.
Representatives from the ruling Democratic Party, government, and the Blue House vowed to come up with measures to increase the supply of masks. In a meeting at the National Assembly on Wednesday, former Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun, who leads the ruling party's coronavirus response team, said the 3 groups have agreed to secure the supply of masks by sharply restricting exports and encouraging factories to increase their mask production even on the weekends.
We need to respond extraordinarily. First, production needs to be increased. Second, fair distribution should be observed. Third, we should find ways to prevent the public from waiting in long queues to buy masks.
While stressing the importance of fair distribution and the need to prevent the hoarding of masks, he said that it's also important to make the public understand that residents of Daegu, which has been hit the hardest by the epidemic, should be given priority. As part of such efforts, the 3 groups agreed to include masks in an online shared information program on medications called the Drug Utilization Review. The program allows pharmacists to check consumers' medication purchase history. Meanwhile, at the cabinet meeting led by Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun via video conference from Daegu, officials passed a roughly $9.8 billion supplementary budget proposal aimed at tackling COVID-19. The money will be used to support medical professionals with quarantine and examination equipment, cover medical institutions' financial losses, and provide emergency funds for small businesses. The extra budget plan will be sent to the National Assembly on Thursday for approval. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, the list of countries restricting the entry of travelers coming from South Korea is expanding by the day. Seoul's foreign minister is speaking with her counterparts to explain South Korea's COVID-19 quarantine efforts and to urge them to remove particularly excessive measures. As yet, though, it seems those efforts appear to have been in vain. Oh Jung-hee reports.
92 countries around the world are imposing entry restrictions on travelers coming from South Korea as cases surge in the country. 38 countries, including Malaysia, Mongolia, and Singapore, are banning the entry of foreigners who visited South Korea within the past 14 days. Some countries like Vietnam and Japan limit their restrictions to Daegu City and the surrounding Gyeongsangbuk-do province, where most of the confirmed cases have been found. 23 countries are isolating travelers from South Korea for up to 14 days on arrival. Those include New Zealand, Taiwan, and Russia, and 14 provinces of China. And 31 countries have stepped up quarantine procedures with stricter health checks. Thailand is conducting temperature checks, and some countries like India and Nepal have suspended the validity of visas. South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa is speaking with her counterparts from other countries. On Tuesday, she talked to Iraq and El Salvador's foreign ministers about their countries' entry bans for South Korean nationals. She also discussed with her Indian counterparts India's suspension of validity of visas already issued. Since the outbreak began, Minister Kang has spoken with her counterparts from over 10 countries to explain South Korea's efforts to contain the coronavirus and to persuade other countries not to take measures that could curb future exchanges. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
The novel coronavirus continues to spread around the globe with more than 92,000 cases worldwide now. Italy has the highest death toll outside of China with 79 deaths so far. At least 77 patients have died in Iran, with more than 2,300 confirmed cases over there. Iranian state media said Tuesday that nearly 10% of the country's lawmakers have been infected. The US, meanwhile, reported 3 more deaths on Tuesday, bringing the death toll to 9, with at least 118 confirmed cases. Despite the spread, the WHO says the virus can be contained as it spreads less efficiently than the common flu, and transmission does not appear to be driven by healthy people. Meanwhile, the coronavirus has raised questions as to whether this year's Olympics will take place as originally scheduled, and Japan's Olympic minister has for the first time acknowledged that the Summer Games could be postponed. Seiko Hashimoto told Japan's parliament that the contract to hold the Tokyo Games only specifies the event has to be held within 2020, hinting that it could be pushed back to later in the year. Our Choi Won-jong reports.
Japan's Olympic minister says the Tokyo 2020 Games could be postponed from the summer until later in the year amid fears over the coronavirus outbreak. Responding to a question in Japan's parliament, Seiko Hashimoto noted that Tokyo's contract with the IOC calls for the Games to be held within 2020, which could be interpreted as allowing a postponement.
It only says if the Games are not to be held within 2020. It depends on how this is interpreted, but it can be read as a postponement within 2020.
The Summer Olympics in Tokyo are due to be held from July 24th to August 9th. Under the hosting agreement, the right to cancel the Games remains with IOC. IOC President Thomas Bach, however, said his organization remains confident regarding the success of the Games in Tokyo.
Following a very comprehensive discussion today in the Executive Board, the IOC remains fully committed to the success of the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. There is a task force in place since we remain very confident with regard to the success of these Olympic Games Tokyo 2020.
With 600,000 visitors expected from all corners of the world, the COVID-19 outbreak has raised doubts about whether the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics will go ahead or not. However, the head of the World Health Organization said it was too early to make any decisions on the matter. Choi Won-jong, Arirang News.
Now, in an attempt to protect the world's largest economy from the impact of the coronavirus outbreak, the US Federal Reserve has cut its interest rate by 0.5 percentage point. The cut, twice the size of the Fed's typical rate move, is the first emergency cut since the 2008 global financial crisis. Kim Yo-sun reports.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has slashed its interest rates by 0.5 percentage point to a target range of 1 to 1.25%. The decision was unanimous among policymakers. This is the first emergency rate cut since 2008 and comes amid increasing concerns over the COVID-19 outbreak.
Earlier today, the Federal Open Market Committee announced a 0.5 percentage point reduction in the target range for the federal funds rate, bringing that range to 1 to 1.25%. My colleagues and I took this action to help the U.S. economy keep strong in the face of new risks to the economic outlook. The fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong.
The Fed's decision to cut interest rates before its next scheduled policy meeting in mid-March reflects the urgency it's facing to prevent a global recession. In a news conference on Tuesday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell explained the COVID-19 outbreak would weigh on the American economy for some time.
The virus and the measures that are being taken to contain it will surely weigh on economic activity, both here and abroad, for some time. We are beginning to see the effects on the tourism and travel industries, and we are hearing concerns from industries that rely on global supply chains.
He also explained that the move is in line with measures being taken by central banks of other major economies, adding that he will be engaging in active discussions with the top finance authorities of other countries. Following the Fed's decision, President Trump took to Twitter to call on the central bank to cut even more. He also called for more monetary easing. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, turning to some economic news here in Korea, the country's household debt to GDP ratio increased on year in the third quarter of 2019 amid sluggish economic growth. According to the Bank of International Settlements on Wednesday, South Korea's household debt to GDP ratio stood at 93.9% at the end of Q3 last year, an increase of 2.7 percentage points from the year before. Now, this is the fourth fastest rise among 43 economies with available data. Only Hong Kong, China and Norway saw faster increases. South Korea's household debt to GDP ratio was the seventh highest among those 43 economies. Switzerland topped the list with a ratio of more than 131%. In other news, a report released by the International Atomic Energy Agency on Tuesday shows Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium is more than 5 times the limit allowed under the country's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. The report said that as of February 19th, the stockpile stood at 1,510 kilograms, far higher than the 300 kilograms limit set under the agreement. Despite going over the limit, the report indicates Iran has not been enriching uranium over 4.5%. An enrichment level of about 90% is required for weapons use. Iran denied the reports, saying it will not recognize nor respond to any of the allegations. Now, as COVID-19 continues to grip the nation, local businesses are encouraging employees to work from home to reduce the risk of infection. On top of that, more people are requesting so-called non-contact food delivery. That means asking the delivery person to leave the food at a pre-selected point, then picking it up once the driver has gone. Kim Da-mi has the details.
Hundreds of thousands of workers in South Korea are holed up in their homes, which have become their new workstations. They've been told not to come into the office as Korean companies try to stop the virus by minimizing social contact. Some say they like this new arrangement.
I love that my commute is shorter and that I can really focus on my work because I'm alone. Also, we've replaced regular face-to-face meetings with video chats and online messengers, which work just fine. But there are also limitations, like it sometimes takes longer to get work done in a chat room.
Working remotely can eliminate office stress and hectic commutes, but for some people, it can be a burden.
I have to take care of my children because all the kindergartens and schools are postponing the new semester. After being told to stay home, I work and look after my kids at the same time.
But for some people, like delivery drivers, working from home is impossible. To protect them and their customers, one local food delivery platform has added a new function to their app, enabling users to request that the driver place their food in front of the door instead of giving it directly to them. With no need to come in contact with the delivery person, people can have their food put in a specific place like the outside the door or the building.
The use of delivery apps has increased since the start of the outbreak, so we've implemented the safe delivery function to protect all of our workers and users, especially those out making deliveries in the field.
As recommended last week by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, more and more companies are implementing working from home policies. Other firms are strictly restricting visitors and giving workers staggered lunch hours to prevent crowds at cafeterias. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Okay, that's all the news that we have for you at this hour. Join us again at 5 p.m. for more Arirang News. Until then, goodbye.